We're back to the Neil Haley Show. My guest today is Tracy Poizner. Tracy, thanks for stopping by. We're going to kind of talk about fatherhood and the importance of fatherhood. And first, introduce yourself. Tell us about your businesses really quickly so people understand who you are. And then we're going to go into this importance of really looking at fatherhood.
Sure. I'm an advocate for divorced dads. My business is called Undeletable Dad. And I started this business, well, for a lot of reasons. I guess I'm married to a divorced dad, but I've just noticed that I feel like fatherhood in general has gotten a bad rap over the last 30, 40, 50 years. There's been a degradation, in a way, of what fatherhood represents in society and how fathers are encouraged to interact with their kids. And I think something important is being lost. And I feel really moved to try to bring fatherhood back in a kind of new, improved version, a new, empowered version.
I think that's fantastic. When you're able to do something like that, bring it back in such a new, improved way, because fathers are confused, right?
Yeah.
Once they're divorced, how do they what is fatherhood then? Right? Because it all depends on so many ways, right? And the relationship with the ex-wife.
Absolutely. And in so many divorces, where there's a lot of conflict, hostility, tension, it's really easy for obviously for the parents to disagree with each other fundamentally about raising the kids. But somehow society is like putting some subtle pressure, or maybe not so subtle pressure, on men to, like, that if they would do things more the feminine way, it would go better for them, to try to copy more the way mom does things. And a lot of people just think that they're trying to make things smoother for their kids, like by doing things the same way that mom does them. But something really important gets lost, because fatherhood is not the same as motherhood. It doesn't provide the same codes, for lack of a better word, to the kids about maturity and growing up.
And then especially if that father has never introduced the kids to their significant other, they might be dating or long-term dating, it becomes difficult because the father can't be a mother too. And I think that's where you're hitting something really important to talk about, right?
Yeah,
Wow.
of course. And I mean, let's be honest, like there are situations where a parent dies or whatever, and there are mothers who do all of the parenting and there are fathers who do all of the parenting. And that's, like, we all do the best with what we have, right? But certainly organizations grew up like 50, 60 years ago or more, maybe, like Big Brothers of America, right? Where it was recognized that boys especially need some kind of alternate father figure in their life, who don't happen not to have maybe a grandfather or an uncle who could take the place of a deceased dad, or one who has left the family and really is not in any contact. But there is something so important about the role of masculinity in fatherhood. And I think, again, we're talking about an era of social evolution where masculinity is looked at with a kind of suspicious lens, right? Like we talk about toxic masculinity, and it's not absolutely clear which parts of masculinity are the toxic ones. I don't personally think any of them are, but we're associating like aggressive behavior and hostility and violence with masculinity. Those things are not actually masculine traits. They just aren't. They're a kind of a false an attempt at grasping at false power, which is not something that belongs to the pure masculine energy. So it has a lot to do with social discourse around masculinity and how dads are raised or encouraged or conditioned even by the world around them, by media, by social media, to behave with their kids. And like I said, something important gets lost.
It definitely seems like it does. So what tips do you think fathers should think about, especially going through this process, to help them through it and become a better father in the 21st century, especially as a divorced dad?
Yeah, that's a big question. I think the first thing is to recognize that it's not all about being divorced. I think that fatherhood in general is a little bit under attack from not just divorce and alienation, but from the way children are so susceptible to social media, right? Like they're, let's face it, really pretty much addicted to social media. And to a very large extent, your children are being raised by social media, and it's hard to drag them away from that. And there's also a kind of an extension of like wokeism, or this like elevated respect for human rights and for inequality that has been extended to the world of children, where now like schools and courts are trying to make children to be equal somehow to adults by respecting their wishes in ways that don't make any sense. And this is true of, families that are intact and not just parents that are divided. So we're really, fighting a very strong wave of a trend of disempowering parents in general from the understood rights that they would have to raise their children. So part of it is knowing that you have nature on your side, because you have nature on your side. Nothing ever beats that. Children are wired to want the guidance of their father. In fact, more and more, exponentially more, the older they get, the closer they get to the threshold of adulthood, the more they crave the direction and input of their father, because his natural codes are those of, about going into the world, about drive, about ambition, charisma, assertiveness, about engaging with risk, about overcoming failure. Those are the father pieces. And again, it doesn't mean that mothers can't teach those things to their kids, but they naturally come from a father. And if you understand what your kids need to receive from you, you can find a way to give it to them. You can, no matter what, no matter alienation, how much access or contact you have, you can find a way to do that for your kids.
All right. Where is the best place people can find information on you, learn more about you? Where can they go?
They can go to undeletabledad.com. That's my website. And same on Facebook, Undeletable Dad.
Thanks again, Tracy. Appreciate it. Look forward to chatting again.
Thanks so much.
You're listening and watching The Neil Haley Show. We'll be back in just a moment.